Hello, hello, hello. I got another necklace. Yay! I made 3 necklaces with 3 monsters. This is my blue cookie monster. Hey, 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 hey. I love it. Love, love, love. My jacket doesn't match now, but at least this shirt matches somewhat. So, and I made these bands out of seams from baby blankets, which I use to make myself sweaters and pants with. So, okay, now I'm going to complete this. I see this has cracked again a little bit. Papa dog, I got a cookie for you. Yeah, a cookie. It's so cold in here. It's ice cold. I gotta close my jacket. It's too cold. My hands are cold. Feet are cold. But the cookie monster has to be visible. So, Papa dog, this. I didn't get you on the. I did not. Only the hand. So, Papa dog. Yay! Look how gorgeous the Papa dog is. Yes, he is very, very gorgeous, and he has an amazing shape, like my artwork. It's amazing. Papa dog, you are gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Yes, you are. So now I'm gonna finish this up. Use my volcano color. So here's use the other half of this cotton swab, and I'm gonna finish up this color here in the middle. So you see that these paint processes are very meticulous. It's not just some wishy-washy, for an hour a little bit painting, but this is real meticulous paint job work. This is professional. Professional artist paint job. Listening to Jiddu Krishnamurti talking to Dr. Alan W. Anderson of Cal State San Diego in 1974, talking about what is love. What is love? Is love pleasure? Is love sex? Is love romance? No, it's not. He talks about pollution. He talks about the destruction of planet Earth because people don't understand what love is. They're so caught up with their self-images and their professions and their, being liked by society and having business partners and not wanting to chase anyone away with concern about environment and all that leads to the destruction of planet Earth. All this looking the other way, all this denial, all this focus and the concern about what does society think of someone. That's why that's more important even than the abolition of religion. So is to really focus on on the dissolution of those self-images. And when we really do that, then religion will fall away naturally. Because religion, that's all it is. It is something that rests on self-images. And he's the only philosopher or speaker worldwide in history who has ever said that he cries over the butchering of the baby seals. Never heard anyone else talk about this. Jiddu Krishnamurti had no self-images at all. He was not concerned about what someone else thinks of him, or about any of these social standards and social attributions to gender and so on and all of that. He did not care. He was short. He as a child he was neglected. He was malnourished. He was rescued in South India by Annie Besant, the one of the founders, one of the 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 organizers of the Theosophical Society. And Annie Besant was very psychic, very in tune, and she knew that she was going to find Gautama Buddha in India again, in a different body, of course, in a new body. And so she set out to look for him, and there he was. He was there, totally malnourished, on the beach, holding holding the hand of his younger brother. And she saw these two brothers together, and she rescued them. It's an amazing story. And there he was, Gautama Buddha, in another lifetime. So putting all of this again, yet in different words, this time into English. He was supposed to be a major religious figure. They wanted to put him onto the highest level. They wanted to make him the world religious speaker, guru, religious figure, spiritual figure. They wanted to make him. They were making him to be the savior, the Maitreya, the rescuer, and they wanted to make him the head of the Theosophical Society and wanted to make this real big. And they were preparing all these followers. It was like a huge thing, huge celebration. But he wanted nothing to do with this. He said, if I were to accept all of this, all this wealth that was given to him, this incredible power that was given to him, so much that was invested by people, by followers, and so on, and unbelievable estates that he would have owned, and wealth that he would have been reigning over, and all this. And he rejected it all. He said, I'm not a guru. I don't want to be some kind of another religious figure that is going to be bloated up and where people lean on and just worship and not think for themselves. He said that goes completely against his own philosophy. He's a philosopher. So I don't know when it was, but I think he was 18 when he, with a heavy heart, had to talk to Annie Besant, whom he dearly loved, and he knew what it meant to her, all of this that she has done there to put him into. And he said, I'm sorry, I have to tell you before I tell anyone else, I cannot be that figure that you are trying to put me into. And she was very, very heartbroken over this. And he felt bad for her and all of this. But he said he cannot do it. So on that day of expectation of all these followers that came there in the hundreds of thousands to see him at Brockwood Park. Was it? No, not Brockwood Park. It was in England somewhere at the Theosophical Society. And he said to this entire congregation publicly with a microphone and everything and speakers, he said, I cannot be your guru. I am not your guru. Sorry. I'm just a regular person. I'm not someone to give you the answers. You have to find the answers yourselves. You have to do that work. You have to find out. You have to inquire. And so that became his mission then in his life, to be a philosopher and to do talks and conversations. And some of these people stuck with him and followed him wherever he went. And he gave lectures in India, in Germany, France, England, United States. He got a home in Ojai, California. It's the Krishnamurti house. It's become a museum, the Krishnamurti archive. I would like to go there one day. And a lot of people, when he said that he's not going to be their guru, a lot of people were angry. That's what the ego does, actually. The ego actually wants to lean on someone. The ego does not want to inquire into truth. But how can you convey the truth to someone if you tell them, I know all the answers? The truth is not being taught like this. The truth is being experienced. You experience the truth for yourself by inquiring. It wouldn't do me any good, for example. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Wouldn't do me any good if I went out there, if I went, let's say, if I go to a slaughter facility, right? And I go in there heartbroken as I would be, to see that suffering going on. But these people, they're so detached from all of this. They're so disconnected. They're dissociated from all of this suffering. They don't see it. So if I go in there and talk to those type of people, when they are so far removed from the truth and from kindness and compassion, that they are in front of screaming pigs and they don't, it doesn't register with them that those are living sentient beings. They're sort of like a child screaming for a life. So if I talk to those people, how are they going to listen to me? How if I start lecturing there, let's say if there was some sort of thing that where they had to by law listen to me lecture there or something, yeah, would be very very much progress if we got to some point like this. But even if I did this, even if this was possible for me to do, these people would not be able to listen because they're just not there on that level, psychologically, physically, mentally. It's just not there. They're disconnected. How can I teach this to someone? If I teach this to them, compassion, which I've tried, which I do all the time, because what else can I do? I mean, I can at least try. I can try to make this clear, some understood in some way. But if I went to those people that are totally disconnected, they would not understand it. They wouldn't hear it. They're not vibrating on the same frequency. So how can I convey that message to those people? They will laugh about me. They'll become they will mock me, they will ridicule me, they'll use sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is something that's a very, very popular modality for disconnected men to use on women who are intellectually more on the level, and they do that. That's a very popular thing to do to make themselves think that they sort of have the upper hand. And it's an egoic mechanism that happens. I see that in chat rooms all the time. Sexual harassment being used as a means of feeling in control. Because if they didn't have that, if they couldn't bully me in any way, they would not feel like they're in control anymore. And that would be a very frightening thing for the ego. So this is how far they are disconnected from everything. And also badly anti-educated and religious and all of this. Ridicule always comes first, and when the ridicule doesn't work, then comes the violence. I would be putting my life at risk if I went to one of those slaughter facilities and started lecturing about true love. Even if I didn't do anything, if I didn't, if I would walk out and nothing would be accomplished by this, even just my words would be perceived as so much of a threat and so much of a clash, it must be so revolutionary. That would be too much for the egos to take. So they will kill me, definitely, for sure. Even if the killing me is against the law, the ego will short circuit, So they will be bypassing the prefrontal cortex, and they will be snapping. So they're not receptive to it at all. So in that sense, we cannot really teach something like this. Something of that magnitude can really not be taught. Certainly not to people who are vibrating on a completely different frequency, who are not on that level. So how can this information be conveyed, transferred over to those people's brains? It can only happen if those people are brought to that in a very specific way, in a very non-threatening to the ego way. And any lecturing, any kind of lecturing, this is the realization I have come to now, any kind of lecturing will be perceived as a threat by the ego. Who are you to tell us? Will come, violence will erupt, and there's no listening happening, no listening. So it will be only understood through a lens of republicanism, through a lens of religion and old values and old non-values, as I call it. So be understood through always through the lens of the ego. All these egoic things that the ego has attached itself to. And the only way they can really find out about this information, really hear that information and see it, is if they explore it for themselves. And how can I get them to explore that? How can I? How much work has to be done to lay out the groundwork for them to get to that, even to let these nutrients of mindfulness into them. So what has to be done first before that? We don't have time. We don't have time to wait for another 1,000 years until those souls become receptive to that information. And it is a soul journey. It really is. Someone who's not ready for that information, it wouldn't matter how educated they are even in that area. Of course, it makes a huge difference in how people conduct their lives, in the way they were educated. They were trained their whole lives, by parents, teachers, and society, and so on. That makes a huge difference. That makes a difference between a Buddhist and a Muslim, for example. But that doesn't mean that all the Buddhists are angel souls and God souls. No, not at all. There are some stagnators among them as well. Yeah. There's was the so-called warrior gene, which is it's a real bad name, because the warrior gene is actually attributed to those people who snap at the drop of a hat. That's a criminal gene. They should call it the criminal gene, not the warrior gene. The warrior is a caring person who gives his life to rescue someone. People who snap at the drop of the hat is because of the ego. This is also found in the genes, of course, and it has to do with the soul development, the soul developmental stage. So there are some Buddhist monks that would snap if they had not had the mindfulness training and the meditation. They still are at that level of stagnator. Just because they had that education doesn't mean they have jumped now to another soul level. No, they haven't. Still stagnate ourselves. But they do, in that discipline, as I call it, they do much better than they would be doing, they walk towards soul development faster, towards the goals of becoming compassionate, much faster than if they would be completely on their own on the streets, burglarizing people, or hurting someone, and so on. So that's why I think it's very important that people are being taught the right information. That doesn't mean that Buddhism, the way it is taught in around the world, is always super role model. It's probably not, probably also misunderstood sometimes. It's probably also has been, as the teachings of the Buddha probably have been tweaked a little bit here and there. They have been altered or misunderstood simply, and but it's still better than what the Quran teaches, people, when they say that they get rewarded for killing infidels. So there's no comparison between Buddhism and Islam. So, and or any, Islam and Christianity has this violence as well. In the Old Testament has that same thing about killing the infidels. It's real horrible, is that. Buddhism doesn't have that. There's no killing someone, and there's no demand or no calling out for killing an infidel. So in that sense, what Buddha taught is very advanced and has gone a very long way in terms of history, where it actually stood its ground. It withstood generations and generations of rereading and recopying and interpreting. So it has withstood all of this whisper post that so easily can distort any kind of teachings from the past. Probably has had some misunderstandings happening, but it wouldn't be able to go to that extent where someone would make hate out of love. So the love message has made it through pretty well in Buddhism. It is amazing because the Gautama Buddha has laid it out in so many different forms, in so many different examples and sutras and meditations, that it's made it impossible to misunderstand that message of be kind to all living beings equally much. Kindness, love, compassion for all living beings equally much. Don't eat an animal. So that has been tweaked here and there in some areas, because people decided, oh no, I don't want to adhere to this, so I'll just change his teachings. So that has, but in general, not to torture another living being, to be a good steward. The basic general message has made it through. He also said, don't flagellate yourself, don't subject yourself to suffering or something, because you want to be rewarded in some afterlife that has been ignored by some, and they flagellate themselves. So I've seen these kind of things on YouTube, seen self-flagellation, or even some monks beating other monks, in terms of practicing mindfulness and practicing equanimity, and even in under duress, under stress and pain, and so on. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that one should be putting himself into a state of suffering. Don't do it to yourself, don't do it to any other living being, ever, in any form. Always be kind, loving, gentle. Always look after the other, that he's feeling good at all times. That he's never hurting, never feels rejected, never feels hurt physically or emotionally. Always feels good and always trusts and always has calm brain waves, to be able to feel good and to be receptive to learning and so on. It's very important for all living beings. Oh, I'm going to turn this light on. I'm going to turn the lamp on. Okay. Brings more light in. It's getting darker. It's very cold here right now. My hands are cold, my feet are cold. It's not comfortable, even though I have the heater full blast on. So, yeah, it's okay. We'll make it through this. We'll make it through it. I wish we could live in Malaysia. I love light. I love warmth. I want everyone to feel good, to make it good, make the best out of their lives, to make it happy for themselves and others. At least the ones that are in your vicinity, that live around you, make it nice for them. It's important. Those people work in slaughter facilities, stop right now. Walk out. Walk out. You have nothing to lose. Walk out. Walk out of there. There's so many nomadic people now living in RVs and having a good life. You can do the same thing. You don't need a ton of money to leave your jobs, particularly not jobs that hurt other living beings. Those jobs need to be abandoned right away. Very important to leave an unethical job that hurts other living beings right away. Walk out. Get an animal rights lawyer if you can. Tell him what you saw. Don't do anything illegal, but speak out. Speak out against injustice. Take it to a legal dispute. Take it to a courthouse. That is my message to you. End that suffering. Do what you can to end that suffering. That's, for example, also why I could never go into neuroscience, because neuroscience requires, that's what my professor told me in clinical psychology, that neuroscience requires us to go into this kind of work. What a horror. There's no way I would, no matter how interested I am in that subject, brain and how the brain works, not on cost of animals, will not do it. It was not long after she told us this in one of the classes in Landau, Germany. It was not long after that. I kind of really lost, I really lost all interest in that subject, in studying, in continuing my studies. I was so sad by this, by what she told us. She said she almost didn't make it through these practica, working on rhesus monkeys. She just, and they were still loving them. They were still happy to see them after all these things they have done to those animals. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. She said she almost had to walk out. She couldn't. It was very hard on her. She was a caring woman. It was hard on her to see this. Testing on animals needs to be outlawed. So it was not long after that that I quit my study program. I also quit it for other reasons, but that was the, I would say that's really the main thing, because what else would I do with psychology other than to get into neuroscience or do something in that direction, yeah. What else would I do with it? Become a market psychologist, like some of these ruthless people that were there in that university? No, I don't think so. So I don't know. I was so struck by that. I was also lonely, and like wherever I go, people just shy away from me. No one wants anything to do with me, wherever I go. And it was very hard on me to be alone like this. I had some girlfriends that were very sweet, also very much animal lovers and into animal rights. But they all had a boyfriend, and when the weekend came, they would be with their boyfriends, and I had nobody. Met this guy from Nigeria who was very black. He was as black as this. He was as black as this here. Very gorgeous looking, very lovely, with a nice galabia gown on, and probably a Muslim of some sort. I didn't know. We we didn't talk about much about religion until the subject sexuality came up, and he said to me that he thinks women should have pain during intercourse. I said, what? What the F? And so I said to him, there's the door. Bye bye. He got real mad at me. He took terrible offense when I said, that is unethical, that is wrong, that's terrible. And another woman he dated before me, a German woman, Petra, obviously must have said something similar, because he told me Petra is a mean girl. So she probably said something similar in that manner and said that is totally unethical, and thus we are mean girls to him, because he's not receptive to the message, completely disconnected. from it, just like the people in the slaughter facilities are. How can I teach something like this to a man or woman who is not receptive? How can I? So this whole thing with that Patrick didn't last very long. I don't know, I dated him like 3 or 4 times and that was it. It has to do with education. It has to do with anti-education. These kids, they grow up in those third world environments with the Muslim religion, with unbelievably horrific values or anti-values, and they feel unempowered. They feel terrible, these people, but they're not receptive to hearing the message. They're actually terrified. A stagnator soul, of course. Also. An angel soul even given the same type of anti-education, an angel soul would then listen, and that happens on occasionally as well. It happens occasionally that there is a Nigerian with an angel soul. Very rare, though, very rare, as it is always rare everywhere we go. The angel souls are very rare, but happens. It's a woman in Kenya who gave her life to a black, just like that Nigerian guy, and she sat in trees and she stood up to the loggers. So an angel soul, who, when confronted with this type of anti-education, these anti-values, who will say, wait a minute, this is hurting our environment. This is hurting women, this is hurting children, this is hurting animals. I'm not going to I'm not going to stand for that. I'm going to stand up against it. That's what she did. A very amazing woman in Kenya. She went up to the loggers and they threatened to kill her, and she said, go ahead, kill me. I'm not going to go anywhere because I'm here. I'm the mother of this jungle. I want to protect the trees. So there are those amazing souls once in a while coming, and I'm so infinitely grateful for them to come to the most dangerous places, be existing in the most dangerous situations. And to come there to help this planet and the animals and the beings. And there's some angel souls that will travel to Africa from other countries, and in order to help the last rhinos and stuff like that, to protect the elephants. Many of them got killed. They gave their lives to save the elephants from poaching. Those are the angel souls. They're very rare. Or the ones that go on the sea shepherd ships. They are made aware that can cost them their lives, that Japanese whalers could sink their boat and they all die. So they take that risk. The world has conspired now against Sea Shepherd, and they have turned the laws around, and they made it now illegal for sea shepherd, which were the only ones protecting the whales, in the so-called whale sanctuary that was acknowledged internationally as a whale sanctuary. That's sanctuary means no harm can be done in this region. But sea shepherd were the only ones who were policing that area. The Interpol, the Coast Guards, the actual international police, or captains of ships didn't do anything. It was Sea Shepherd captains, Sea Shepherd members, Sea Shepherd activists that gave their lives to save the whales. They saved thousands and thousands and thousands of whales, okay, until the countries got together and kicked out Sea Shepherd out of the actual whale sanctuary where they could, where they have protected all the whales. So they're not allowed to protect the whales anymore. That this international community has banded together against Sea Shepherd and against the whales, and said you cannot come here anymore to save the whales. On the side of the Japanese whale hunters, that's what's happening in the world. People need to know that. Before anyone ever says, oh, humans are good. Most humans are very driven only by some personal gain incentive. The only reason. Most humans are stagnator souls working only for themselves, for their own gain, whatever it is. Reputation, friends, respect, customers. Even many of those heads of organizations, it's all about customers, it's all about donations, it's all about the income. It's very sad. That's why it is so important that people become aware. Become aware of what matters. So that's why I talk about, because it's my 3 cents of video of trying to bring this message across. I'm not the only one. There are some others as well. So I encourage you to do the same. We're not without power, we're not without leverage. We can do these things. Better than not doing it. We can inform ourselves, and we can share that information with others. And I think that's our duty, this is our responsibility to do that, to get informed and to share that information with others. And not act like the world is sane and great and people are great or something, just because we want subscriptions or customers or whatever. No. Reality is harsh. And those who are stagnators should listen to that and should say, yes, it's true. Yes, I only care about my personal gain. The first step in becoming aware, becoming more mindful, is to acknowledge the truth, acknowledge one's own faults, mistakes. I acknowledge my mistakes that I've made every single day, and it's not fun to do it, but we have to do it in order to grow. Last night was particularly heavy. After that, crying yesterday, and after this transformation process that moved me forward, I had more insights when I went to bed. Always comes along with tremendous guilt and grief over things in the past, things that I should have done better, people I have hurt, unintentionally, but out of ignorance, for example.